All right, we ready.
What's going on there, ladies and gentlemen? Y'all know who it is. It's your boy, Mr. Uncut himself. So, I hope everybody's having a great and fantabulous weekend as we are pioneering for the rest of 2020. Y'all know the mission of Uncut Live Productions is where we focus on mind, body, soul, spirit, faith, social issues, politics, you name it. As I always say, we will not be paused, edited, or muted. That's right. The black voices must be heard. The truth will not only be televised, but it will be publicized. How about that? So, I got a lot of positive feedback. We just did a show not too long ago, 2 days ago, remaining mentally strong. I got a lot of good positive feedback from that. So, I appreciate you guys, appreciate my viewers, appreciate the people that make Uncut Live Productions what it is. The people. This is a people's platform.
Okay.
For the people, the community. So, I have the beloved family. I got my sister, she just adopted me, you know what I'm saying? And I got the mother of the world, so
the world.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it just happens to be just that. But y'all know with Uncut Live Productions that we talk about multiple topics though. And the direction is, sometimes the conversation got to be comfortable, it gets uncomfortable, so that we can get to the root and the core of the issue. And what better way for this topic today? We're going to talk about how that some folks are pro-womb, they're pro the womb, but they're not pro-life. I need to say that again.
That was a deep statement.
Folks, society, culture are the powers that be. They're pro-womb, but they're not pro-life. And we're going to dive into this discussion, so wherever you at, get you a soda, some coffee, or something like that. And we ain't going to hold much of the time, but we just going to, we're going to, y'all know what we do on Cut Live, you know what I'm saying? It just, what you see, what you hear, it is what it is, and that's just how cards lay, it's hey. We're going to dive into this topic. Pro-womb and not pro-life. And so we got a perfect blend right here. We got some strong, powerful women here, and I'm trying to figure out who should I pass the mic to first.
You get that baby to talk.
No. Beauty before age.
No.
Oh, that's a good one.
Whatever.
Let's hear that.
The age has spoken. No, but definitely I say thank you for inviting us onto the Uncut Live for the people. Initially, I guess when I read and I said, hey, what are we going to be talking about? And I was like, hey, why me? Why me? But after, thinking about it a little deeply, I believe probably I had something to offer. First with the age, first from the high school, college, church, and just, now where we are today, I definitely believe I had something to offer to the conversation. And also, being a mother, definitely I believe I had something to offer. Yeah, so, but I still let Jane talk first.
She's so humble, and the thing about it is, Latasha is just an amazing force within the community. I think if you don't know Latasha or Kenneth and all the work that they do within the community on a consistent basis, then you must be under a rock, or you're just cheating yourself of just the dynamic impact that they have in Prince George's County. So it is a blessing, and I count it an honor to be on any panel with either one of them, particularly as it relates to just the wealth of knowledge and service and humility in which they conduct their lives. So I'm excited to talk about this topic because I think that a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions around what pro-life should mean versus what it does mean, as well as, you know, the concept of pro-womb versus pro-life. And for those of you who are watching that don't understand what that topic means, and for me myself, when I first heard it, I was like, wow, that's deep. Can y'all elaborate? So, I mean, you know, someone who's pro-womb is only concerned about the reproductive rights of a woman as it relates to, you know, just her choice of utilizing various reproductive means to either terminate a pregnancy or move forward with pregnancy for whatever reason, right? But they're not concerned about what happens to that child or what happens to that woman outside of giving birth. While a lot of people say that pro-life is the thought process that they are pro a woman not being able to utilize abortion or means to terminate the pregnancy because every life is precious and life begins at conception. That is the thought process of pro-lifers. And if you're a pro-lifer, I definitely apologize if I'm misconstruing your message, but as I understand it, that's the focal point of it. And subsequently, their focus is, hey, you know, people should give birth once they conceive. Now that is the general perception of what pro-life is, but like Kenny kind of alluded to before, what you see a lot of people saying that they're pro-life, but really in reality they're just being pro-womb. Because pro-life, when you really think about it, it should entail not just what happens to the child in the womb, but consequently all of the different factors that could affect that child once they come out of the womb in their life, from the time that they take a breath to the time that they leave this earth. That is truly being pro-life. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of organizations, a lot of a lot of organizations, I don't want to specifically say a certain religion, because a lot of the main religions do talk about the sanctity of life and are actually pro-life. It doesn't have to be one specific religion, although it's one specific religion that's always pushed in the forefront. But in actuality, a lot of the major religions do believe in pro-life from the conceptual term that I just explained in regards to life beginning at conception. So, lost my train of thought just that quick. But
thank you, you know, for you know, explaining, I guess, both of them, because I do believe people are confused, and even looking at the way that the physical, how people handle it, even from a young age. You know, when a girl would get pregnant, whether, you know, she wasn't married in high school, they would often move her away. They would often, you know, remove that individual from the school. So it was already like a negative. So with that same individual, you know, that because of religious or whatever the case may be, is expecting that person to have a baby. It's like, hey, I'm coaching you, hey, don't get rid of your baby, this and the other. But they've already been rejected in school, isolated,
stigmatized.
If probably even that person in church is like, it's whispered upon, oh, that's such and such, you know, child, she's pregnant. So it was already something that the mother, not necessarily the father, because he don't have to carry, but that female child, as well as the family, it was already, you know, you might just say shame.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that because I think that's an important point to bring up. It's we see a stark difference of how the two genders are treated when there's a baby involved. And I want to put this caveat out there that although we're talking in terms of unwed pregnancies, we do understand that pro-life and pro-womb and pro-choice, that all circles every circumstance of a child coming into the world or being conceived. But specifically for this particular part of the conversation, when we talk about how women of any class, race, or race are stigmatized when they become pregnant out of wedlock in regards to the man and how they're seen. It shows this stark contradiction in how we handle and view and see situations and see pregnancies and even see women, right? And we don't even have to specify it to one religion because it does flow through the different religions, but we can clarify that, yes, you know, when a woman becomes pregnant out of wedlock, you know, they get the immense coaching. This is a precious life. Don't give it up. Don't give it up. While simultaneously saying, you're evil, you're a sinner, you got pregnant, you this, that, and the third. While the guy, you know, and listen, if this not your shoe, if this ain't your shirt, ain't your church, ain't your mosque, ain't your temple, if this not your shoe, then don't put it on. Because a hit dog will holler. So that being said, like, you know, this person is simultaneously told that they are the space for creating life, and that is a precious gift from God. But the circumstance in which the life is created makes them sinful and bad and wrong, so they're isolated, ostracized, pushed to the side, instead of as the woman. While the man is just kind of like, oh, well, you know, it's what happened. I mean, you even see it when you look at premarital counseling. Again, a hit dog will holler. Like, you know, a woman is told to prepare herself for the role of being a mother if she is going to enter into a relationship with a man who has children. And it's almost never said, oh, you don't want any you don't want somebody who has baby mama drama or something. You don't baby drama. You're always told from the perspective, or it's been my experience, you're told from the perspective of, you need to prepare to be the mother, be the calming or stabilizing force to this man who's had children, right? You need to be that space. But consequently, I've heard from several of my male friends that they're told to not even get involved
somebody to have a child
with a woman who has a child, one child, let alone any other. So it's like this difference in messaging and how we not only view unwed mothers or even mothers in general, but how we view them in regards to unwed men who have children. And it falls under these gender roles, these perceptions that keep being pushed that aren't really positive, and all of that plays into the mental and emotional stability of even the person carrying the child. How can you, in any religious faction, say that this person is doing a holy thing while subsequently calling them unholy, right? And then causing such damage to their mental and emotional psyche.
You hit on a nerve, because it actually happened to the Virgin Mary.
Right.
I'm saying she went through those same thing in the way that I look at it. If God allowed the baby to come here, you know, then God, you know, he allowed it to come in, because if you ever, you know, witness even seeing somebody go through the different, you know, months, you know, of pregnancy, and then somebody actually literally had birth, that's life and death. You know, for somebody to even to have that child to come out. Even some people, the doctors have told them, and they can be married, that hey, if you had this child, you might not live. So that's also a consequence that a husband or a wife had to deal with, that if she does conceive, if she's going to take that chance, whether if it's going to be her life or the baby's life.
Right.
So that means that the father, you know, can be left raising that child because of whatever the condition of her body, she couldn't take it. And we do have there's a lot of those situations like that.
African American women have the highest mortality rate when it comes to giving birth, right? They have the highest mortality rate. They die in droves, and God rest their souls, while giving birth. So to then subsequently tell someone that they don't have the right to make a choice that's in the best interest of their health because of your beliefs. Because if we boil this down a little bit further, there is a deeper conversation of, this is your belief. Your belief is that life begins at conception. And I'm not here to argue that. What I'm saying is that is generally someone's belief who is pro-life, that life begins at conception. That is not everyone else's belief. And so subsequently you have a war of beliefs. Whether your belief should be the overriding decision-making factor for someone else's decision.
Right. So I still, but if it's basically what is the person basing it on? So often it is religion. You know, but in the Bible it says that we all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So as an individual, if it's my body, I would like to be able to make the choice about my body, and then I have a relationship with God. It's between me and Him. And that decision, He doesn't, control our will. I'm saying he gives you the words and He give you a path.
Yeah.
But I and especially like with religious, it's always like it's a big sin, little sin, all of it is sin.
But what if I'm an atheist? What if I don't believe in that?
Then you don't believe. Then it's still your choice. It's still if it still end up with the same thing that we believe in, that one day you'll be judged or whatever the case may be. But still, He also said in 1 John 1:9 and 1:9, I'm saying we all have sinned. We can ask for forgiveness of our mistakes. People make mistakes. So even after that person who had that child and you stripped from the child because your family is ashamed to say that you had a baby and they sent you to North Carolina, plenty of people were sent to North Carolina. That's not a good thing. That person had to be able to live with that, to hate them. I was stripped. And maybe doing this life now, since we have the DNA, Ancestry.com and the DNA, maybe you can find your child that your family made you give up, that they didn't want you to have an abortion, but they didn't want you to raise it. Or they didn't step in to raise it.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point. And I think like that's just one of the circumstances that people go through. Like, let's talk about that. There are years, 10s, 20, 30, 40 worth amount of years of people who have gotten pregnant, got sent away, and subsequently their child has been gone. We talk about pro-womb versus pro-life. This is a classic example of that. Because think of the emotional toll that you have now put on someone to carry their child to 9 months, to be sent away from their family, their level of comfort, their love, their support system, then to give birth to that child that's been growing inside them, that they've been nurturing, that they've been loving, and then told you will never see that child again.
Or on your deathbed, for the person who you've been calling mama, say, hey, I wasn't your mama, this is what happened. Your mom was actually such and such. I raised you.
Right.
Or, because
your mom is actually your sister.
And then all of a sudden you don't see that loved one because it's like a war between that child because that person got attached to your child. So it's a lot of different scenarios. But to me, it's like it's a contradiction. It's like you want the child to come here, but then you have provisions to be able to take care of that child.
And when we talk about provisions, go ahead.
I got to speak on that because this is the part where I'm coming in as the advocate. So, and I'm going out here because Mr. Uncut does this. But we got a lot of pro-lifers that don't want to support the construct to make sure that we can see the life of that child. What am I talking about? Let's think about this construct. Let's talk about the minimum wage. Let's bring that factor in. Let's talk about why child care costs are so high in the roof. We're so now you pro-life, fine. You fine. But let's start talking about pro-womb. Correction. You pro-womb. But because we gotta.
Pro-life is when that child is here, right?
Pro-life is when you're here. When you're here.
Because in my view, we got a lot of these groups at large, both religious and non-religious groups, that say they're so pro-womb, but they're not looking at the longevity, the longevity for that child. We have the highest childhood poverty that's here in the U.S. The 3 months ago, right? I was in my level of advocacy work under the bridge off K Street in D.C. I saw a father with his 8-month-old child. Okay? And so, the pro-lifers, where y'all at? While we're saying, pro-wombers, this conversation is tough.
Because I wrestle with that one. What you saying?
Because it's like the child is we're telling either the mother or the father, don't abort the baby. And by all means, I'm not saying anybody to go out here and to abort. Whatever you do is whatever you do. this is the conversation that we have to have, we must have, and continue to have, because we got to deal with this issue. We can't just be so pro womb that we don't think about this, the psychological well-being of that child. The African proverb says that it takes a village to raise the child. So that means that as the child is born, do we have that village?
That makes me very, do we have that village?
We had a village at baby shower, birthdays. It may be over, but through the day and day, when you just stepped on and you talked about provisions. Provisions. Really they don't, because other than that, we wouldn't have impoverished kids, or I know they give probably children free lunch or whatever the case may be.
If they're not talking about demolishing that, cutting the funding on that.
Or because they don't come from the best sides of the track, they might not get the best education. So my whole thing is, because I had a conversation with my daughter about that, and she's around your age. So it's a big difference.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, people, they don't think about when that child is there. That child had to be fed, need pampers, need love and nurturing. But if you have a mother that had to be to work to provide, she's not going to be with that child. So that child is not going to necessarily get the nurturing or whatever.
Can you say that part one more time? Because I just want the people to hear this.
The child is not going to get the nurturing. The mother had to feed the child because she don't want to be on welfare, whatever the case may be. She's going to be away from that child.
I'm agreeing with everything
so
you're
far
saying.
as with the village, and this is just everything that I witnessed from people who got pregnant maybe in high school or in college. If they had that village, they were still able to finish school and go off to get their PhD. That's if you have a village. Everybody don't have a village. Because some people, because of their pride and their shame, it's like, oh, she done went on and got herself pregnant. She ain't do it by herself.
Come on now.
She went on and got herself pregnant, but the guy, he's moved on and he's got his career.
We all know you can't do it by yourself.
You can't do it by yourself, so when that happened, I say some people have a village and you can see the son that's been able to make it under those circumstances. And then you may see that woman who did not have a provision, she still possibly is in the system and never had that support. Then it's a domino effect, because also her child, has been rejected. She's dealing with rejection. Her child is dealing with rejection. It's just a whole, rejection cycle.
And I have societal rejection. So, go ahead. Well, a couple of things.
That's a good topic right here. We
get
uncut over here.
We may have to talk to our congressperson. I'm saying provision now, because we have to get money from there. It has to be provision.
Yeah, congressman. Now I'm thinking about. Okay. So,
no, because it's a domino effect. It got to come from there. It has to be provision. If you're going to say that these mothers had these children.
I agree.
And I get stripped, but now DNA is allowing you all to find
out. Latasha's doing this because she knows about the
A lot of people don't know who their parents are.
This is true.
Because they had these sealed things.
Sealed court documents.
But the DNA, baby, don't lie.
Well,
take the DNA test.
I will say this, and it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But if your name is on a court documentation, you should be able to access that file. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just based on what I know. If your name if you are one of the people that is involved, you should be able to have access to that file. But you can talk to a court.
I think they need to reverse that. I think the child.
No, I'm saying the child themselves.
They grown now.
Yes, I'm saying so the child themselves would be able to go to court and say, "Hey, I was the child of this adoption. That's my file. Open it." What I'll say is, I definitely agree with talking about the holistic parameters of how we can prepare the world for this child if we say that we're pro-life, right? And I think about that from the standpoint of, okay, we need minimum wage, but the minimum wage needs to be on a sliding scale that goes up with inflation. Like, we can't give you $15 minimum wage at 2024 when, I'm just picking that number arbitrarily, when in 2024 the minimum wage should be $20, right? Because there's still going to be an issue. In regards to sky high prices for daycare. Now, I want to touch on that. I do feel like the increase with daycare rates is in line with inflation. However, when we're talking about preparing, this, because and I do want to talk about that, the other thing that you said. I'm gonna draw this all together. We are in a village period. Now, you are more than correct. There are some people that have better intermediate village people than the societal village. And so that being said, if I'm sitting here looking at okay, I know that this has to be the standard for daycare. Me as a government official, I'm going to say, hey, in my county, this has to be on a sliding scale based on their income. If you're on HUD and you're on Section 8 and you're on this and that, why are you still paying $480 for daycare every week? So I agree with you. And I feel like these are the conversations that I feel like are missed on a more global level in our community and in our society. We don't have conversations that intertwine resolutions or solutions. We have siloed conversations, right? And when we have these siloed conversations, what we do over here is going to have, like you said, a domino effect of something over here, and then something over there, and something over there. That mother is not going to be with that child if they have to work and work and work.
Right.
Subsequently, we can't have the thought of children and their growth stopping when they get older. I heard this saying, I actually heard it on the Betty Broderick story. That was actually a really good story from the 1980s. The one with the new girl, Jessica Pete, or whatever her name is. That one was actually that good. But getting back to the point, she said, everyone wants a kitten, no one wants a cat. And so, I think about that when we talk about teenagers, when we talk about young adults, when we talk about how we look at them, particularly how we look at them as Black children. So, for example, in Prince George's County, we have this wonderful place called the National Harbor. And a lot of people go to the National Harbor and they have fun, they have a great time, right? There aren't any age restrictions on the freedoms to peruse this particular area until about 2 weeks ago or so, when our county executive put out a mandate stating that there was a curfew, and if you are not with an adult, subsequently that adult could get a misdemeanor charge, $1,000 fine, and up to 1 year in prison, right? And fines to not exceed $5,000. So I remember I said something about that on my Facebook page, and a lot of parents were like, look, it's thousands of kids down there. It's wrong for them to be there, and that's not cool. And I support County Executive Alsa Brooks, and somebody needs to do something, and then parents just drop them off. It's wrong. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm not insensitive to the thought process that these children need somewhere else to go. And I would have preferred that the county executive actually took some time and spoke to the Maryland Parks and Recreation Division, other nonprofit organizations, churches, and things of that nature to create a comprehensive plan as an alternative for the children to be down at the National Harbor, instead of creating a regressive and oppressive thing that attacks parents who might not know what to do with their kids.
I'm gonna help you out.
I'm coming. And it causes a misdemeanor, possible jail time. Yes, we are in the middle of a pandemic, but I proffer you this: if the pandemic, first of all, not even if, the pandemic is serious. Look at Prince George's County's numbers; it's crazy. Right. And I definitely agree with anyone who would say, why are your children at the harbor, during COVID.
I probably answer that.
You know what I'm saying? I understand that. Right. And I wanted to see some an alternative action is my point. Right. But I will say this: if you know how dangerous the disease is, you know how dangerous it can be to people, why are you only specifically targeting an age group? And then the age group that you're targeting, subsequently the fines and issues that you have for the parents could put potentially these parents in a crippling position. Why aren't you closing the businesses more? Why aren't you, why aren't you putting more restrictions on there? You know what I mean? And I understand why we need to stay in the black. So I get that,
but Jana had her turn.
I do.
I'm like a mother of Jana, but
she is. I love you.
The whole reason, sometimes I guess when a person, I guess, in leadership they have to take drastic measures. I know, for a while, in different communities, and you can ride around, a lot of basketball courts and different things was chained up. Yeah. But as you ride around in our communities, you'll notice that the basketball rims are back up in a lot of areas. Play. They have court play. Mm-hmm. Also over at the harbor, that was like the spot. Yeah. And I think it's not a playground. Right. And I think that probably the people that live there, the resident, the people that live there, probably also have complained that it's a lot of unsupervised children. If you think about the hard work that our educators had to do when the students was actually in school. Mm-hmm. Now, in some of the cases, the children are home with their parents. Mm-hmm. So the parents need an outlet. Yeah. And if that's probably the safest place that they was pushing them, hey, just go over to the harbor. Because some of them, that was like a drop-off spot. Like, yeah, I can get them out of my head. But on the flip side, maybe we need some more parenting things because often the teachers, our educators would complain and say, hey, your child is off the hook. But now that they have to deal with James and Keith at home, they get
James and Keith get to go to National Harbor.
They get to go to
National
Harbor.
And I agree with you. I think that hits a point.
So she had debated, because if you whip your child, that's different, but your child shouldn't just be loose. Not with this situation, unless they plan some type of activities. I know years ago, we used to hang out at Landover Mall. We would catch
the boulevard.
We would hang out or whatever, but they had to make provisions for that too because children was over there stealing and fighting. So it was different things when they was unsupervised, and it happened over there that they had to have a curfew because things were going on and no pandemic was in the way. Mm-hmm. But that's also the complaint from the retail, the people who have to operate those stores and deal with those children that are not coming in to patronize, or maybe they coming in because they cold. Or they hanging out, so they're not necessarily customers. So,
but again, I
think it's still parental. I think that we need to help our parents.
I do.
But also people, but I don't think it should be dumped on people that want to shop. They have to deal with other people's children.
So I understand both sides of that, and I definitely agree with that. I think my main complaint was the half court play. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's November. It's November going into December. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna play outside in December.
No, Jamie. They was out. They was out on Thanksgiving. It was a nice day. What is that? Cabin Branch off of what is that road? Walker Mill. They were actually playing. It was a nice
day. But as we move to winter, there are other things that have to be put in place. And like you said, when you look at these issues comprehensively, right? And we talk about being pro-life, the comprehensive thought process, which we just fleshed out right here, was, hey, parents need an outlet for their teens. Mm-hmm. They need somewhere where their teens can go that's safe. They need somewhere where they can, get them away and then kind of come back, but it's also healthy for the COVID-19. This is an out air space. They can go in and out as they please. Right. Now, again, where was the alternative put forth in place after having conversations with probably Parks and Rec, other organizations, and Fit Center to do the same thing? In even I'm still against this mandate, but at least in conjunction with it.
I believe that they're working on it. I do have know a few people, I guess, that maybe like directors of Park and Planning, but they working on it because they know it's a lot. It's a lot. So, but I still think a lot of those activities are going to need to be outdoors. Yep. It's going to have to be an outdoor space. Giving them those activities. So I believe that they were working on it. Because we wasn't expecting to be in this situation this long. We thought it was going to be a month, 2 months, and now we're here. And now we're going into 2021, and we still don't know how to deal with it.
And I feel like it's going to be more of a lockdown in the next. Once the transition changes, it's going to be more of like that. And then even when we get the numbers back from Thanksgiving, the numbers back from Thanksgiving from May were horrible. Yeah. And I don't know what they're thinking for Christmas. So my thoughts on all that is not to be, again, I'm not anti anyone, but I am going to say that, hey, this to me was not the best option for the community, particularly in
But I think the community got the message too. So watch your child. Because maybe you have to put them in your backyard, have some type of activity before.
I don't have a backyard. What if I don't have a backyard? I have an apartment.
So here's where I'm coming in, right? So here's where I'm coming in because as someone who is as a mentor, here's what I came through. Even outside of the Uncut Live productions. If you pull up, right, you're going to actually look and you're going to see the very essence of the playground strapped up. So mind you, so this is one thing that I discovered. Do you not know the different noise complaints that have transpired since COVID? Because kids, they're active, they need that energy, they need to be outside, running, and you know that they can't even go to the play. Forget about National Harbor. Let's just talk about
maybe we need hand sanitizers at the playground. So yeah, the playground. Those things off.
The playground within itself. They can't even sit on the bench because the bench is yellow taped.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got to start thinking. This is where I'm coming in with the holistic approach, because we have to have alternative. Is this environment that we are all in? We're all trying to adapt. We're all trying to adjust. We're all trying to make the best of the situation. I think we need to think holistically, realistically, comprehensively, and we can get something presented, because we're not thinking about this.
Yeah,
the things that I had to start dealing with, I had to start advocating for a couple of the complexes and say, hey, listen, can you not penalize because you hear a noise complaint because of kids? You see what I'm saying? So everywhere around, we're all trying to adjust.
I heard something, and I believe I heard it from you, but I know I've heard it from other people, but I definitely probably heard it from you because it's a word of wisdom. So I heard that when you think about policies and you think about procedures and you think about legislation, you always have to ask yourself, what is the possible unintentional harm, right? And I definitely heard that from you. So and others. But like when we think about that, that's what we think about when we talk about being pro-life and pro-womb. So what are the unintentional consequences of you being so focused on making someone give birth regardless, right, of the possible outcome of that, versus you looking at how to create an environment holistically that if that person chooses to give birth, because it's still their choice, it can come through in a space that doesn't, make it even more damaging.
Yeah, that the child can win, and the person who decided, hey, I'm going to do this against not having a job, against not having a family support system, but just because, hey, I think this is the right thing to do. What type of support, is out there for that individual.
I'll take it even a step further. I'm trying to say this as cute as possible because I know it's people watching. So let me say it this way. When we talk about creating an environment and having it comprehensive to be in the best situation for bringing a life into this world, if that is someone's choice, right? What are our laws saying in regards to parenting, right? We stigmatize and put a lot of the responsibility upon the mother. And you can even see that reflected in I'm going to say in a kind of twisted way, I'm going to say it like that, in regards to the mother's rights over the father's, as opposed to having a set standard from jump. From jump, we have equal rights. It's that way when you're married, but if you have a child out of wedlock, sometimes until you go to court, you have to go to court. And once you go to court, a lot of times it goes towards the mother. And like when you have legislation that kind of nullifies that, when it puts it down from a break, all right, whether you're married or unmarried, whether the child has lived with you for these past umpteen years, this or that, it's going to be same rights. And then you start from that point. And then you go to the best interest of the child. Yeah, that is how it should be.
Definitely, because I said even if you're a single parent and you have to take off from work, your job frown upon it. Like you have to take off your child is sick. So I've had the baby. Now you don't even have my job is not protected, and also this is also Maryland's at will state, so you can get let go of at any job that you have here, anytime. Which is crazy. So that means that your child can be sick, and you sending your child in an environment, and I didn't like that. Like my child be healthy, and all of a sudden she have a runny nose because she was with somebody else. Little child had a fever or whatever, but she could not take off from work. So the father, he don't have that responsibility, especially if they're a single parent.
But if you start from jump, okay, daddy, you got 50%. Oh, you live in Prince George's County? You have an apartment? Oh, cool beans. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you got 50%. You going to have this child too. You're going to have them from Monday to Wednesday and this month. When you start really changing the scope and landscape by really looking at even just the custodial law and ensuring that both parties, male and female, mother and father, when the situation calls for it and as the baseline have the same access, same responsibility, that changes a lot of dynamics on its own face there.
But I still think that system also was a damaging system because it's like, in other words, hey, I can pay my money and I don't have to be around.
And I agree with that.
Instead of saying that, hey,
oh no,
you're gonna share your equal rights or whatever, equal responsibility,
and time. And I feel like even those, like, there's such a confliction of thought, right? There's a confliction in some people's minds. I'll just have to pay my money, and I'll see them when I say I could pop in and out because I'm still their mom or I'm still their dad, right? Then there's the other confliction of thought, and where it's like, well, you as whatever parent you are, and I'm gonna say men because it's usually men, unfortunately. You as the dad, you don't have to have the same level of rights or access to the child as a mother does, right? Yeah, so and that's equally as damaging. Yeah. And so it's about like you're the guy, the Palm Collector. The Palm Collector.
Shout out to Kevin Craig.
Like when you have these constructs that are built to be destructive, you have to destroy the constructs and recreate a new construct to make it better. And that's one of the things that you have to really think about when you talk about being pro-life. Are you talking about changing custodial laws to where there's shared responsibility, shared custody, shared this, shared that? Are you talking about being able to allow for children to go flux between one home or the other in a safe space? And when you're not talking about those things, that's when we're talking about, you're not talking about a comprehensive, holistic plan about being for the life of the child.
All right. Because even for a child, I guess as far as in a father's point of view, you got to ask your mother because he don't have any rights. So what does that child think of his father? You know, like, hey, Dad, could I do this? Well, have you got to talk to your mother because your mother calls all the shots in reference to you.
Or vice versa. Right. And then sometimes it is, and I do want to clarify because sometimes it is more than appropriate for one parent to have the child, to make the decisions, and this, that, and the third. It's more than appropriate for that. What I'm saying is we have seen on a local and national level that this disproportionately affects, fathers.
It's damaging.
And it's damaging to the child. And I'm not saying that one parent is more important than the other because they're not. I'm saying that the system sometimes implies that, and subsequently that damages the child as it relates to their access to their other parent. And that's the only thing that concerns me. So when we talk about, again, being pro-life, it's about looking at all these different constructs and how they impact the child on a daily basis. If I spend my whole week as a child looking forward to these 48 hours with my parent, right? You know, and then subsequently, when that parent is down the street and that parent has the ability and wants the ability to have that child
interaction,
4 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever, on and off. That should be the goal of any court system, right? And when that's not like that, we have to question if we're making decisions that are in the best interest of the child, or we're making decisions that are in the best interest of what we deem appropriate, right? And a lot of times it also comes down to like co-parenting. Like when we talk about restorative justice and restorative practices and really getting into the community, shout out to Phasia Harding, and I am going to that's not the name. But Prince George's County has a mediation center. They offer free mediation in relation to small claims, issues in relation to court, and co-parenting issues, to where they will mediate this for you to where you can have a better relationship and create a parenting plan in order to help those situations. And we talk about, again, comprehensive legislation. Where is the support behind that? Again, she's Phasia Harding, Fasia Hardy, Hardy. Like, yeah, she's right. She's over that. And so when you talk about asking legislators, how are you creating comprehensive policy, right, to really help the community? Talk about returning citizens. What if I am in jail, right, and I have a child? I already have a support order in place. I'm in jail. I can't do that. Yeah. Then when I come out, I'm trying to get back on my feet, but now I have a $30,000 debt for child support. Right. Now that's not to say that the child should not be supported. That's not to say that the child should not have some sort of support coming in. That's not to say all those things. That's not even to say that that person, the other parent, does not deserve some sort of compensation as it relates to having to take care of that child alone. It is to say that when you have a system that's not looking at circumstances and not having the ability to create laws that are applicable to circumstances, to where again we are positively affecting the child comprehensively, that is the issue.
But I think that's the whole thing about pro-life. So even with some of, especially in the black community, people that have gone to jail, they can have 3 or 4 children. Far as the judge or, whatever, they have to maybe take that in consideration of the domino effect from removing that person. Let's say if it was a non-violent, type of offense. But if it's another creative way that you can utilize them, but still keep that person there with their family. But often with a black family, go back to Black Lives Don't Matter. So when you say pro-life, those lives you don't care about. Because if you can uproot somebody, and let's say maybe they just got home and they had a job trying to hurry up and get to the we gonna lock you back up. They working, they doing something, or whatever the case may be. But it's easy because the life is not valued. So until we have legislators that could actually make the laws that's fair and impartial, that would also work for the black community, the same way now in the non-black communities, you have opioids, you have things like that, and they don't get locked up. They can have kilos of that stuff.
They don't get